Hey there, Marcus Bronzy here from How to Kill an Hour. Just thought I'd drop you a quick line to say, hey, thank you for supporting the podcast. Myself and the whole team really appreciate it. And we've decided to give back, and we've done that via our Patreon, which is a great way for you to show us a little bit of love by supporting us and becoming a patron of the show. And in return, we will give you extra episodes that we only give to our patrons. Plus, on top of that, you get all of the content that we deliver on our free feed earlier than usual and ad-free. Because, well, why are we going to make you listen to ads if you've just helped us out by giving a little to us? So here's a little taster of what you can expect on our Patreon feed. So, after uploading her DNA to GED Match, Christine Marie Sally was matched with the genetic profile of an unknown murder from the 1980s. So, what sound effects do we need for the 80s?
I'm far too young to know anything about the 80s, my friend. Although I was born in the 80s, but I don't really remember anything about it.
So for us, sound effects would be the sound of milk being poured into a bottle, the sound of
nappies
being changed, the sound of the rattle thing that baby. Remember when kids just used to get given a rattle? I don't see that anymore.
Probably because it's super annoying. You know what I mean? Just imagine that, just rattling a rattle all the time. Nowadays, though, kids have all got iPads by the time they're 6 months. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man.
Just getting them hooked on the tech from early.
What I'd love to do, and I probably wouldn't love it if I was the receiving end, is to give a kid a sound effect board. So the kid's like, do-do-do-do, do-do-do-do,
I mean, the thing is that would also become very annoying. You know what I mean? After a while. The issue is anything that you give to kids becomes annoying very quickly.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, let's roll back the clock to the 80s, where an archaeologist in Ludlow, California, discovered a shallow grave in the vast Mojave Desert. It contained the nude bodies of a man and woman who had been beaten and then shot to death. But a lack of IDs at the scene left their murders unsolved for decades. Until now. There we go. The saga began in 2018 when Christine Marie Sally began searching for her biological parents. The Virginia native had always known she was adopted, and that year she had hired a private investigator. According to ABC News, the investigator first found the adoption paperwork that identified Sally's biological mother as Pamela Diane Duffy. When the investigator then uploaded Sally's DNA to GED Match in December 2020, this happened. So basically, let's step out and just talk about GED Match. We have what do we have here is we have a few services here for DNA matching and stuff like that, don't we? I forget.
And it's Ancestry one and stuff
Ancestry. I don't know if there's an American one. There's something called 23andMe. I think there's another one we got. So
there's a few people that I know that have done them where it's you can find out exactly where you're from in the sense of it will say, 1% Nigerian, blah, blah, blah. And I'm a little bit I don't know whether skeptical is the right word, but I'm how can they narrow it down so much to one country? I'm a little bit are they just making this up? And because we're a nation of believers, or a species of believers, with horoscopes and shit like that, people just believe it, don't they?
Yeah.
And I kind of feel I feel a little bit that way about these things, but surely there's some science behind these things, which means they can't just outright lie about it in the same way that Mystic Meg does in the Sun.
Exactly. I mean, look, we were sent at one point. We were sent here at How to Kill an Hour. We were sent the DNA things, and we were sent the ones that tell you about what you're allergic to. It's like a gut. It's they take a sample of your poo-poo, and they tell you what is good for you, what isn't good for you, and stuff like that. And at the time, I remember we got the boxes. And I don't think I gave them to anyone. And I didn't use them because I was a bit I'm not usually like this. I was a bit I don't know, man. It's kind of intimate information to just send to a private company. Your DNA swabs from your mouth and bits of your poo-poo. And I know we probably have our details all on the NHS and stuff, but that's quite, I don't know. I wasn't up for it at the time. And I remember being I don't know if the guys will be up for it. And we just let it kind of fade away.
Marcus was
I don't want my numbers on the system. You know what I mean? They're tracking me. The government, they'll have all my DNA and they'll be able to fire me. You think I'm falling for that?
at the same time posting on Facebook. Fucking idiot. But so basically, back to the story. So Christine, she got the private investigator who uploaded her DNA to the GED match in December 2020. So they uploaded it to a vast database. Now, GED match is a website for genetic genealogy research. Anyone can upload their DNA file, analyze the results, and compare their DNA with others, and it's free. Now, you need to know this as a listener. Nick Bright is aware of this as well. Nothing's free, innit? If it's for free, you're paying with your data. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know?
They have a database of 1.5 million people, which doesn't seem much, Nick, but it's enough for them to connect the dots when it comes to where people are from. And it's enough to it's a big sample size, because when you look at like 6 degrees of separation, when it comes to genetics, I'm not going to try and do the maths for it. Having 1.5 million people means that I'm much more likely to be able to find one of your cousins. Do you know what I mean? Than not. That's quite a large sample size. So when Christine's investigator uploaded the details to GD Match, it suggested that there was a parent-child relationship between Sally and an unidentified DNA sample that was uploaded by the authorities in the case of Ludlow, California. It appeared that the woman was none other than Sally's mother, Pamela Diane Duffy. So Sally's mother had been murdered, and they'd found that out by using that information. So the San Bernardino County investigators then heard of a successful DNA match, and they realized that their 40-year-old cold case might be coming to an end. So Sally consequently provided the San Bernardino investigators with what she believed to be her mother's name and a DNA sample again, which the California Department of Justice positively matched to Duffy. So the records show that Duffy was about 21 years old when she was killed. In fact, before we go into that, Nick, so if you upload your details to these websites, there's possibilities that they can share them with the authorities. How would you feel about that, bro?
I wouldn't be that keen about it, to be honest with you. And it's so funny because it's exactly what I was just saying a minute ago about you not wanting to, not wanting to put your fingerprints in the system and that.
Yeah.
But it's weird because on the one hand, like, you know, with what's going on in the world at the moment and everybody getting the COVID-19 vaccine, and you know, you've got people that are like, oh, I'm not getting the vaccine because they're tracking us and blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm a little bit like, are you mad? Like, who? Even if they wanted to track me, I don't give a shit. Like, what, they're going to sit there and look at me right now in my little studio recording this podcast with you. Ooh. But then on the other hand, I'm like, actually, it's not about them actually tracking me. It's about them doing it on the sly or doing it without your permission. You know what I mean? Which is a bit of a piss take.
I think that's what it is, and what I'm concerned about is probably more like our episode that was on the main feed about the deepfake technology, is people abusing it. That's what I'm concerned about, because if you have a massive database of DNA, could you somehow mess with the records? We've seen it in some cop films or sci-fi films where they're like, yeah, we switched over the DNA records so it looks like Nick Bright was, responsible for the murder. Do you know what I mean? Or like, the plot twist at the end when they pick up the 2 DNA files and they were like, somebody had access and somebody switched them over. That's the kind of stuff that I think could happen. Like, I could plant evidence and make it look like you, or I could swap records with you, go do a crime, and then you get nicked for it. Do you know what I mean? That's kind of how I feel. That's the kooky conspiracy theory part of me scratched for this episode. Right, so the records show that Duffy, her mother, was about 21 years old when she was killed. So this lined up who the female victim was, but I can hear you asking me, Nick, who was the male victim? Do you want to ask me, Nick, or should we just...
Who was the male victim? I mean, yes, go on. Who was it? Tell me.
Well, Nick, seeing as you asked, Sally was also able to help identify the unknown male victim. She remembered that her biological mother had been friends with a man called Digger Lane before she vanished. Sally also knew that Lane was a Virginian convict who planned a cross-country hitchhike with her mother after serving his time. He was a jailie. Right, so whilst the nickname didn't match any records, investigators did find a William Everett Lane with similar credentials and a Jacksonville, Florida address. His relatives were subsequently tracked down, and they voluntarily supplied the authorities with their DNA samples, and those matched those of the murdered man in the desert. Lane was then determined to be around 20 years old when he was killed, so it all matched up. All investigators needed to know now was who was the killer, which at the start of this story was a near impossible task, but as it turned out, they already had a suspect in mind, and the evidence discovered during the start of this story could only help. The San Bernardino Sheriff's Office had long suspected that the now 68-year-old convict named Howard Neal might be the culprit, in part because he was in the same region where Duffy and Lane were killed, and curiously, he moved to Mississippi right after they'd had their...
Bloody hell. It's not where I saw the story going.
Sorry, I went off there. He was been in prison since 1982. He'd been convicted of raping and then murdering his 13-year-old niece and her 12-year-old friend, as well as killing his own brother. This guy sounds nasty, man.
Yeah,
flipping
piece
out.
of work, mate.
Piece of work. So Neal was initially sentenced to death for those crimes, but an IQ test that suggested he was mentally challenged changed his sentence to 3 life terms in prison instead. So investigators managed to interview Neal about the Ludlow murders in 2017, during which the culprit said that he picked up the couple while they were hitchhiking on a freeway. He then brought the two to his residence, where San Bernardino investigators say he became involved in an argument with the male and felt the male would probably kill him if he did not kill him first. Typical, innit? Yeah. Great story, mate. Yeah, officer. I was scared that they were... I'm a murderer. I was scared they were going to murder me first, so I murdered them. How is that even... Why? How would you even try...
There's a lot of murdering going on here as well. You know what I mean? Like, rather than like... You know, I was scared that like they was going to attack me or we were going to get in a fight or blah, blah, blah. No, just straight to murder.
Yeah.
No, like fighting or beefing or anything like that. Just straight to the killing.
Yeah, so the thing is, officer, is the reason I've murdered 1,000 people is because you know what it's like when someone gives you that murdery look, right?
There's nothing you can say. 150 murders, 150 souls, 150 lives.
But officer, they had this thing, right? You ever had someone just give you a little bit of a murdery look, and then you know they look at you and you're like, yeah, he's got that murdery look. So I was like, can I murder them first before they murder me? So think about it. What I've actually done is I've saved 150 people murdering me. So that's 150 people that could be banged up. Instead, I've murdered them and I've done your job for you. Yeah?
Why did you put it like that?
Okay.
That sounds like a lot of 150 people to process.
Yeah.
That's a lot of paperwork.
All right. And instead, hey, I've got rid of them because of that murdery look. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. I can see that you're on board with me, officer, as well. Actually, wait, is that a murdery look you've got as well?
No.
Yeah, you are.
There's no murdery look here.
151. Save that. There you go. That's a little taster of what you can get when you're listening to the Patreon-only episodes of How to Kill an Hour. If you are still only dedicated to our free feed, that's fine. There's plenty there for you to enjoy and kill time with. And if you do want to show us a little bit of love and in return for that, get bonus episodes that are only for patrons and, of course, all of our regular content without ads, then feel free to click the link in the show description or just head to patreon.com/howtokillanhour. Anyway, I'll be in the ear holes real soon. See you next time.